Right, well, welcome back. I'm going to read through a couple of questions that I've missed out, so I'll call it miscellaneous. But the first one here is from Steve Robinson from Bolt Action Productions. It's, if you could only hunt one species, what would it be, and what would your preferred calibre be to get the job done? So, in Australia, my preferred species would hands down be Sambar, and the preferred calibre to get the job done would have to be what I'm already using, the 30-06. In short, I just like the 30-06 because it's not in the Magnum range, so I don't have to deal with a lot of recoil. I don't like recoil, it causes me to flinch, and I can still load it with heavy projectiles, so I use the 220 grain round noses in the bush. And if you want to shoot some flatter trajectory projectiles, you can load them down as light as you can load them lighter than, as 130, 110 grain if you want. But for Sambar, realistically, I'd probably only ever load them down as low as 150 grains, more likely around the 168 grain, and I regularly shoot the 180 grain. So yeah, the 30-06 would be my selection for a calibre to get the job done in Australia. In New Zealand, for red stags would be my number one animal in the South Island, just mainly because they're just in such remarkable terrain, and there's something about red stags that I've got so many fond memories of great hunting trips on red stags, and if I could only pick one animal to hunt for my entire life, it would be red stags, hands down, anywhere in the world. Red stags, and I'll limit it to the South Island. Must be in the South Island of New Zealand, in those Southern Alps. And the calibre that I'd select for that would be the 7mm Magnum. That is in the Magnum range, but it's pretty mild for a Magnum, similar to a 30-06 in its recoil, and I just like that it's got a really high BC, so if you want to be shooting out to longer distances, which New Zealand can ask of you in your gear, the 7mm Magnum just kind of caters for that. So be 7mm Magnum for red stags in New Zealand, and in Australia it'd be a 30-06 for Sambar. So thank you for that, Steve. So Wade Robertson, a good old mate from Lincoln University actually. Wade, hi Jamie, I'm a first time caller but long time listener. I have two questions. Firstly, how much did those forearm implants cost? And secondly, if you were limited to one exercise or method of prepping for one of your backpack hunts, what would it be? Cheers, Wade from Christchurch. Implants, there are no implants, mate. That's just many years of being single, I'd say, and then arm wrestling. Secondly, what exercise or method? It'd be a combination of high interval training and strength training. I've always been keen on strength training. I've always wanted to stay strong. Probably don't do legs as much as I should, but the rest, I train the rest of the body and just try to be strong for the lifts, for the short bursts, and mix it up with some runs, with some boxing in the past. I used to box quite a lot actually when I was working offshore. There was a boxing bag, and that was a great outlet to just get the heart rate up. Would do the Spartacus regime, which I discussed on the training video, and the Matrix program, which is a really interesting sort of complex sequence of exercises and ranges of motion for a 12-week program, and that was great. So also 300, the 300 exercise, and I know you've asked for one, but I'm just going to throw out quite a few because I never really stick to one in particular. I kind of like to change things up. But the 300 exercise regime that the cast for the actual movie 300 did, I think it's 5 or 6 exercises. It's like box jumps. I can't remember the rest. I just remember the box jumps. I hated the box jumps. So lots of deadlifts, even if you don't lift that much, just deadlifts are a good all-round exercise and just stimulate and sort of attack your central nervous system in a way. So, I mean, ideally, if you have the time and you're nearby the mountains, get up into the hills and climb the hills. But if you're time poor, like a lot of us are who have got kids and we work busy lives and we've got wives, then you just want to simulate that at a gym to some extent and just go in and hit that workout hard and fast, get it done, try to do that regularly during the week, and then just be willing to push through it on game day. You know, if you're physically not up to it, then your mental toughness has to carry you through. Alright, so next question, K Usher 001. Thanks for taking the time to share your knowledge. Righto, 2 questions from me. How did you get your start sambar hunting in Victoria? Would like to hear the process of getting permits and permissions, and then the nuts and bolts of getting from looking at a map on a screen to boots on the ground. Did you have someone who took you under their wing, or did you DIY your early sambar hunts? Second question, how do you effectively balance your responsibilities as a father with young kids with the need to get away and hunt as well as balancing work commitments? Well, I've already answered the second one before in part 3, so I'll park that one. Part 3, maybe part 2. Sorry, I think I've answered the second question in part 2 of this Q&A. But the first question's a really good one. So my first sambar hunt, in fact the first 2 sambar hunts were with a guy who was a local guy called Brad Olczarski from Victoria, and we'd been exchanging emails while I was in New Zealand and hunting a lot, and at that time was writing for a magazine called New Zealand Hunter, and I believe Brad was doing quite a lot of writing for a local magazine in Australia, and I forget the name of the magazine, but we exchanged emails. He was asking about New Zealand, I was asking about Australia. Eventually I moved to Australia, we stayed in touch, and then got talking about sambar, and I knew very little about sambar actually, and I had no idea what the Victorian high country was like either. So just spent lots of time talking on the phone. Eventually the trip rolled around, we had maps that we'd looked at, but to be honest, the maps that you have in Australia, well, the maps that we had a copy of, were not like a topo map that I use now, the ones that I buy from bogong.com.au, they're great topographical maps. The map that I had was like a parks type map that had all sorts of yellow and green colours to it. It was awful to look at. I couldn't see any contours, and that was the map that we were planning this hunt off, and I found it really hard to actually visualise the terrain. So I was very fortunate that I had somebody like Brad, who was an absolute sambar guru, to hunt with on that hunt. Now he didn't guide us, we went in together. I hunted on my own pretty much the whole time except for the one half day with Brad where we went back and tried finding a stag that I'd shot the day before. So while Brad took us into an area, and it was his area, he took us into an area that was very productive, and he'd been into the area and monitoring it very closely over the year after some fires had ripped through, so there was a lot of local knowledge there, and we were just, myself and Andre were very fortunate to go in with a guy who A, knew the area very well, B, had patterned the animals to the extent where he was very familiar with parts of the catchment which would be productive, and C, was willing to share his knowledge on sambar with us. So for that I was very lucky in those early 2 hunts to go with Brad. The second hunt was later that same year where I came over with a couple of Kiwis, and Brad was always very open, and he had always a very interesting view that I didn't necessarily have. He would always have a different perspective that just kept me intrigued on the sambar oddities, so to speak. So in terms of the permits and the permissions, well, we didn't need permission, we just got the hunting permits through the Game Management Authority and paid that for an Australian fee because I was living here, and basically arrived, got picked up at the airport and headed straight into the hills. And ever since then it's been the same, although now I've managed to find proper topo maps, not these parks maps that are, these Delk maps which are horrible, and plan to the nth degree and then look at it on Google Earth. So, and I touch on planning in one of the other videos in this Q&A series, so if you want to have a look at that in more detail, feel free to have a look. And I also went into more detail earlier in the year on 2 planning videos, which I'll put a link in the description. So thank you for that question, Kay Usher. Aussie Outdoors. G'day mate, firstly thanks for sharing your passion for hunting with all of us, and look forward to watching more of your adventures in the future. Thank you. My question is, did you take a course in videography or editing to create your YouTube videos, or was it self-taught? No, I've not done any videography courses, but in 2010, 2011 I did a photography diploma just for photos, because I've always loved taking photos. I've got photo albums stacked full of photos just from adventures out in the hills. I've never been artistic in taking abstract photos. It's usually just been a photo of a landscape because it appeals to me, and I just wanted to get better at it, using light and using the different camera settings. Now I shoot only in manual. I don't shoot in RAW for video, but I shoot in RAW for photographs. And look, it's just been self-taught. It's been looking at, I love watching other people's films, and in particular Donnie Vincent, absolutely spectacular. Cameron Haynes' stuff, the Meat Eaters, the Born and Raised guys, Born and Raised Outdoors I should say, Hushin, Kiwi Bushman, Josh James, I love watching his stuff. The Hunters Club, absolutely spectacular footage that the Hunters Club put together. Cam Henderson's, who's just come out now with the Hunters Journal, which is fantastic. So I just try to find hunting films and films in general. Yeti puts out some amazing films that just have me inspired to try and create anything even similar to it, and just get ideas and just try to put that into practice. And I don't feel like I've got that recipe right yet. I've got, I reckon, 5 to 10 years of hard slog before I can capture and just wow people with the camera. I'd like to have that happen in future, but for now I'm happy just capturing the hunt for what it is, and I'll try and finesse and work on how I can improve the cinematography with each film. And I think that's happening now, but no, it's self-taught, and it comes with a lot of frustration and some hard lessons. So, other local Australian films or YouTube channels that I really enjoy watching is Matt Merrick, Alex Proft from Aussie Bush Harvest, Hilldog's unique character, and also Bolt Action Productions, Steve Robinson. So I just like to look at all of that content and find a way to take the best out of it and try to apply it in my films. So hope it's working, but I don't think I'm there yet. Long way to go, and I'm okay with that. Okay, so next question, Steve Coonan. Hi there, I'm looking to purchase a GPS, and I'm tossing up between the Rhino 750 and the Garmin InReach. Just wanted to know your thoughts on the InReach and its GPS mapping ability. I've been reading up, it's not up to the Rhino 750, yet it has lots more features in the InReach. Just wondered what your thoughts were, and if you don't mind to share a little insight. Okay, so Steve, I have not owned a Rhino 750. I've seen them in use, and what I've seen I've been impressed with. I mean, they've got that ability to have a two-way radio communication between sets, Rhino sets, and also UHF, although I haven't had as much great coverage between a UHF Uniden, say, and a Rhino 750, but between the two sets they're good. The Rhino sets, I should say, they're good. And if other people turn on their visibility settings, then you can see other Rhino 750 users in the area, which is, I think, a safety feature that the InReach doesn't have. In terms of the map base layer, yeah, I think you're right. Standard, the Rhino 750 might have a better base map than the InReach. The InReach doesn't have a very good base map, but that's not to say that the InReach can't have an aftermarket or an additional base map added to it, which is at a better quality. I haven't done that with mine, and the reason I haven't is because I like to use a hard copy map. So I don't use my GPS to actually work out where I am for planning a hunt. I do that off a hard copy map. I love to pull up a hard copy map while on the hill, while glassing. I'll look at the map. While at camp at night time, when the others are gone to bed, I'll still look at the map. When I'm waiting for people in the morning, I'll be looking at the map. I look at the map so much. Hard copy is what I use, so I don't really worry too much about the map quality in the actual GPS itself. The great thing I like about the InReach, as many of you will probably be well aware, is that it's got the ability to send a SMS message between your unit and a phone, so you can send messages to your wife, to friends, and that just allows you to stay in touch and for them to send you messages as well. It's also got the SOS, or the emergency setting. But yeah, coming back to why I like the InReach, so if I send a message to another InReach user, like Andy and I were sending messages to each other on our October Sambar hunt, and Andre and I were sending messages to each other on the August hunt, it allows us to be able to click on the location, because what happens is the message comes through and you can click on reveal location of sender, and so I could see exactly where Andy was or Andre was when they sent me a message, and they could see exactly where I was when I sent them a message. And that is a little bit more cumbersome in terms of being able to verify where each other are than the Rhino 750, but I just like the additional functionality of being able to talk with other people. The other great thing about the Garmin InReach is that you can do sort of almost regular tracking, up to 10-second intervals if you want to, or else minute intervals or 10-minute intervals. Whatever interval you want to set will allow you to be tracked, and you can share that tracking with whoever you want to, either by email or a message. And I think people even do live tracking to Facebook or Instagram or some other form of social media for people to follow where they're going with their adventures. So maybe even Adam Greentree does that, actually, I think. If you're watching, Adam, feel free to leave a comment and verify whether you do in fact use the Garmin InReach to track your hunts. I'm sure I saw it somewhere. So yeah, the Garmin InReach, I'm happy with mine. I recommend it. There is a subscription to the units though, and I now just use a flexi plan. Basically, I just only use it in the month that I'm going to do a backpack hunt. I'm not having an annual subscription where I pay a monthly fee. There's a bit of an activation fee, can't remember the exact amount, probably should have done a bit of a Google, but if you Google the InReach options for Australia, you'll be able to see a table of the different subscription rates. So there is a ongoing cost after the initial capital cost of buying the unit. So thanks for your question, Steve. Right, new section into food preparation and cooking, so to speak. Cohen McKenzie, hi Jamie, what food and drink do you take on a backpack hunt? Anything special that's a must-have? Drink? Nah, I don't take anything special. I take electrolytes, just the little small sachets, but not really anything special for the drink. And in terms of food, I don't really take anything special for food either. It depends on the hunt, but in general, for pretty much any of the backpack hunts that I've done, I'll always take probably 2/3, or it's at least over half, but 2/3 of the hunt. I'll pack meals for the nights, and then the other remaining nights I'll bank on having to harvest an animal and eat off the hill. So what I mean by that is, if we go for 7 days, then for 4 days I'll take enough meals to have a pre-cooked meal or a cooked meal at night, and for the other 3 nights I'll bank on eating venison, so to speak. Now sometimes I shoot an animal on day 2, and then what that allows me is I can mix venison or pork or chamois or tar in amongst my my meals throughout the hunt, which just adds variety and allows me to take less in my bag. In terms of the type of food, look, I've taken a lot of backcountry freeze-dried food in the past, and in New Zealand that's been, I think, really good, because there's just an ample, ever-ending amount of water that's coursing through the high country, even up high in the very tops in the tussock. that you can continue to access, which allows you to then boil up water and add it to those freeze-dried packets. But hunting in Victoria for the first time in May this year, where water was a real issue, I don't think I'll do freeze-dried during those drier months in Victoria again, just because water's so precious and I don't want to be wasting the water boiling it to add it to a meal. I'd rather have a meal that's got the moisture already in it. I'll carry the extra bit of weight, but I think water is so precious in the high country in Victoria if it's dry that I'd just rather not waste it. Which actually is an interesting point, because Tony Gillihan was the first one that opened my eyes to this in a little video clip that he put together while packing his pack, showing the contents of his pack. I think he was going in for a competition, and I'll put the link in the description for people to have a look at it. But Tony revealed that for his backpack hunts, especially for 2 or 3 nights, he doesn't really take food, maybe a little bit of food, but he packs water in instead, because water is obviously vital and you need it, and you can get by without as much food. I would still take food in, but what I won't do is I won't take in freeze-dried food, I think, for some of those Victorian alpine hunts. And so when we do eat off the hill, so to speak, we shoot a meat animal and we supplement our diet with fresh venison, pork, chamois or tar, then we'll always take gravies in, sort of like a rub or salts that we can cure the meat, or not really marinate. I don't make a marinade up, but you want to season the meat and let it hang for at least a night if you can, or a couple of nights ideally. And if you can't let it hang because you've just run out of food and you're just starving, then it is going to be chewy, but just really thinly slice it, fry it super fast, or take the heart, the liver or kidney and fry up some offal. I mean, offal doesn't need to be, I don't think, hung like the actual meat or the game. So yeah, look, I don't think I take in anything specific. During the daytime though, what I always like to have is a good mix of nuts and sort of like a trail mix, just to give you a bit of a lift. And it's surprising how long a trail mix can last you.